Cut the dang music. Cut it. What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing great. Hope you had a great weekend so far. Just want to see if I could pop on Sunday and say what's up. Yesterday, I had a wedding to go to, and my morning got stretched out, so couldn't really do the live stream. I went to this wedding. It's my girlfriend's best friend, and all her best friends were there, and so we had to go. It ended up being like a really great time. You know, I'm not the party type or stay late type. We stayed till about 9:30, 10 o'clock or something. You know, had some drinks, had some good food, did some dancing. But couldn't live stream yesterday, so fucking why not today? I don't know what you guys are doing on Sunday, but here we are. Just give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot, brother. 50% off coaching still here. All right, the amount of slots open there is inaccurate because I have booked eight slots since we extended this, so there's 12 slots open. It's coaching with me one-on-one. We'll fix your libido and erection issues. Yeah. I mean, I am a master at doing this. It is what I've dedicated almost a decade of my life to doing. Almost 20 years to studying physiology in general, and thousands upon thousands of people that I've coached. Every situation I see, and I understand how important it is for libido, erection, sexual function, sensation to be primed. I know how to do it. You know, to me, you know, I'm the type that recognizes patterns. I'm the type that's good at new things. If other people have taken 5 years to learn it, I can figure it out in 6 months. And this is one of those things where I'm like a savant in, you know, we'll figure it out. It is not that difficult. It just requires a certain degree of precision to dial in sexual function on androgens, whether it's a cycle or whether it's cypionate or whether it's a high dose, a low dose. You know, I've just seen it all, boys. Hire me, livecortex.com. We'll be on the fact-finding call as soon as 24 hours later or that day, and then we fucking start. Geronimo. Let's talk about automatic steel rods. This morning, and this happens to me most mornings or random times throughout the day, you know, I had my junk just started pulsating and got an erection out of nowhere. You know, I was in bed naked with my, girlfriend, but I mean, we were just chatting, it just starts pulsing and boom, you got an erection. If you don't have those, I think people sometimes settle for a hormone protocol where they can have sex and things are like fine, but they don't get automatic erections, and they're not really getting nocturnals. They're not waking up with wood. You don't want that. Ideally, in any situation, if it can be the absolute best it can be, you want it to be. You don't want to just sort of settle for, all right, lukewarm, okay, kind of thing. I mean, nothing in life you should settle for regarding that. You should be an aggressive motherfucker. And regarding erections, the health of the penis actually depends on spontaneous erections, right? Because they have to happen not just during the day, but mostly the health of the penis depends on spontaneous erections at nighttime. When you're sleeping, when you wake up at 3 a.m. and have to pee, you should be 40-year-old virgin, like, walk into the bathroom with a boner. And it's easily achievable. But the thing is there are a lot of, I don't want to use the misinformation. That's like been politicized, but there's a lot of misguided notions out there that, are based on an ideology that sounds logical, that people want to build a cult following around, that they would like to be true, but that just lands people with a boner issues on TRT. Like don't control estrogen or something. You know what I mean? Just some clarity for folks in a coaching capacity, in an emailing me to just say this capacity. I get a lot of the defectors of the folks who claim estrogen doesn't need to be managed in the male body when they're on hormones and they have super physiologic levels of estrogen. I get their defectors, whether it's high blood pressure, most of the time, 95% of the time, it's ED. I listen to those guys. Yeah, I maybe did coaching with one of them. I was part of their clinic. I have ED. I have all these problems. They come to me, we fix it because it's just about, as I've said, DHT and then estrogen being in the right place. So you should have automatic steel rods. Libido. There are times, it is not 100% of the time because no person's libido can be crazy 100% of the time. But a disproportionately majority of the time, when you're dialed in right, you're a fucking animal, dude. And you just want to aggressively engage in sex with your partner. I mean, that's how I am. That's how I was literally this morning. It wasn't even the best circumstance. So I won't get into details, but I couldn't help myself, man. That's what it's like to be dialed in. That's what it's like to have things perfect. And that is what you want on HRT, and it is achievable. You either hire me and we'll do that, or keep listening to the channel because we talk about it all the time. Welcome in, brothers. What's up, Hector? What's up, Nemo? What's up, Zachary? We'll get to your question in a sec. Sammy, what's going on? Hector, hope you're great. Hope you're great. Okay, Hector, good morning. Currently on a hybrid. You're on 12 milligrams of Testi, 5 milligrams Prop Daily. Okay, that's pretty okay. 150 IU HCG every other day. That might not take you over range in estradiol. If you're trying to do one of those minimal protocols where everything just works, that might be really good. When I take DHEA, I feel it blunts my libido, probably too. DHEA an absolute must. It's not an absolute must. Plenty of people get along without it. I just think that if you can make it work, sexual function is going to be better. It's going to make you convert more intrapenile DHT from testosterone. Intra-organ DHT kind of works in an intricate manner like that. That's what DHEA does. Among other things, converts to 7 other chemicals in your brain that allow your brain to be in the right place for libido. But, you know, it can do one of two things. It can convert some to estradiol, marginally at best, I would say. Otherwise, it converts a lot to DHT. And if you don't test your bloods on DHT and estradiol before you take DHEA and then test them after, you don't know what's causing this. You don't know what's causing this. Because in reality, if you're just a super converter to DHT, too much DHT in the presence of not enough estradiol can blunt your libido. You know, that can do that. All right, if you got the 20% concentration DHT gel from Sourceless and you started using it and you took too much of it, your libido would be toast. You can't just load on DHT and have good libido. DHT needs to be in the right balance over estradiol, but not too over. It's the same thing about balance. You know what I mean? If there was no balance, we could just inject 500 a test and be like ragers all the time, you know, but it's just not how it works. Because that's going to convert to a lot of estrogen. You're going to make a lot of DHT too, but the estrogen's going to just pass the threshold. It doesn't really matter if you have a lot of DHT. You know, some DHT can offset that, but generally you have sexual dysfunction. The E2 is too high, you know. So in this case, DHEA could be making too much DHT right away and blunting the estrogenic effects of estrogen, which could tank your libido, or it's just converting to estrogen. The only way you're going to know is to test bloods before and after so that you can see. Yeah. I'm at 20 milligrams a day of DHEA right in the morning with 10 milligram capsules, micronized capsules. It's a company called Douglas Labs, and you can find that on Amazon. Anybody can buy the DHEA that I use. I mean, it's nothing special. And that's just enough. Like that's just right for me. No blunting in libido. I'm probably the horniest about an hour and a half, 2 hours after the morning protocol. So, you know, injecting, 16 milligrams of test, C in the glute, 25 milligrams of transcranial cream, and 330 IU of HCG and 20 milligrams DHEA, you know, with a B complex and some vitamin D and a few other things in the protocol, some lecithin, you know, for load volume and all that. And I'm probably the horniest. Then I could be super horny at like 1, 2 o'clock, and then at nighttime. Like, it's pretty much 95% of the time. There might be small little dips here and there, but I'm just out of fucking control. And DHEA is in my protocol, you know, right in the morning. If I took it to fit, listen, there are people that are suggesting what I think are bad suggestions to take 100 milligrams of DHEA a day. It's going to cause an imbalance, dude. Whether it's conversion to estradiol, conversion to DHT, and then that blocks estrogen to some extent. It's too much DHEA, man. You know, balance. That's what you need. And you got to know the recipe, which is have enough DHT, have estrogen in your range. Test, that's for the muscles. You know, these other hormones are for the sexual function, mainly DHT. Happy Sunday, boss. Nemo took a fertility test, and apparently my sperm are having a hard time maturing. Do you think HCG can rectify the issue? Yeah, probably HCG, HMG combo. Maybe some recombinant FSH would help. I would say that you should look at. I mean, I don't. If you're on task, then you know the test is going to be less functional anyway. I mean, then I guess natty, and you won't have your own follicle stimulating hormone. But if you're natural, go run FSH. You know, I know like people who've taken finasteride have all of them have low FSH. Most of them at least. You could see it. It's like on the low end or it's deficient. I've seen actual L marks next to follicle stimulating hormone on people that have taken 5-alpha reductase inhibitors. Part of the problem, by the way. That's part of the problem. Zachary, I've noticed that applying cream, not just to the scrotum, but also the shaft, has made a notable increase in libido and erection quality. Why could that be? I think it's local conversion to DHT in the penis where it matters, it matters in the brain and the penis largely. The gonads, the seminal vesicles, the perineum. That's where it matters. But I mean, in the junk, you need that for the lining of the blood vessels to be facilitative of proper blood flow so that you can keep blood trapped for long enough to maintain an erection. That's just part of what facilitates that. I noticed the same thing too at various points, just as an experiment on protocols that were more geared toward muscle building where estrogen wasn't great. And therefore libido was okay. Erections were passable, but with some Cialis, I wasn't getting nocturnal erections, but I applied just one pump of the 200 milligram per milliliter stuff to the shaft, and I'd have erections pretty much all night. That didn't ultimately solve the problem because estrogen was too high. Get an AI in those situations or lower your dose if you can't dial in on that. But yes, local conversion to DHT would be the answer. That's what I think at least is happening. I've run this through every iteration of ChatGPT, meaning, there's the advanced reasoning one, there's the quick answer but less thorough one. I've run it through all of those, whether the most basic or the complex reasoning ChatGPT, and it thinks too that there's local conversion to DHT when you're using cream on the shaft. So that is likely what's happening. Sammy, hey man, on 125 milligrams Testi every 5 days and just started pea-sized androdel in the scrotum to increase DHT. Androdel works. I like it, but I feel like it's hit or miss. Also take it. Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason it's hit or miss is because you have things here that aren't consistent. It's very hard to dial in Arimidex in this case to be on a set it and forget it dose. It's very hard to do that. It's not that it's hard. It's that it takes a while. And you have to know how long it takes. I mean, it could take 3 months. Like best case scenario, it takes a month and a half, 2 months, because you have multiple iterations of a dose and a frequency, and then you have to analyze the results, analyze your symptoms, notate everything, look at the bloods, see what it's doing. There's so many other things. Are you somebody who doesn't doesn't block the conversion to estradiol, but are you somebody that when you block aromatase, estrogen distributes evenly at the tissue level? Because some people aren't, and they just the body gets thrown for this loop, and they're just out of balance with hormones completely. And, at the tissue level, it's this weird discrepancy where the blood say 25, which should be fine, but the tissues are in balance in estradiol, and it's causing a fucked up problem. So that's part of the issue. It's hit or miss almost definitely because the AI is in the picture. I'm not saying you shouldn't have that in the picture. If you're aromatizing past your point and you want to continue 125, with some HCG, then, you figure out the AI. But you're close enough at that 125 dose to getting to the point where you don't need an AI. You'd pin every day in that case, keep everything else the same, do that for 4 weeks, see if things are more consistent. You remove the AI. And if not, you're going to have to drop that down to, between 105 and 112 of test and pin it every day. Keep the HCG the same and keep the androdel the same. Although androdel is not as potent and converting to DHT as cream. If you replaced it with cream, either 200 milligrams per milliliter, one pump on the scrotum, or 100 milligrams per milliliter, one pump, or a fifth of a pump. Again, you got to dial these things in. You never know. Start low, work your way up. Then you might be fine. Sim, high-dose phenylpiracetam. We got a nootropics question, or NuPep for dopamine and cognitive function. Phenylpiracetam's mechanism is a mild dopamine reuptake inhibitor, so that would be the answer. NuPep, more of a cholinosensitizing effect, which means that, I think it's on the receptor side. It makes the brain much more sensitive to the signal of acetylcholine when it binds to those acetylcholine receptors. So, you get the potentiation of cholinergic brain signaling stronger with NuPep in the picture. Simon is currently experimenting with Test and Masteron, both propionate esters plus HCG, 10 milligrams of each. Okay. 10 prop, 10 Masteron a day. That's not bad. 150 IU HCG. Libido erection is not good. I think low E2 will increase test to 15. You could try doing that. Dude, I just had this conversation with somebody because it was a client that jumped on board and he had been running he could only run 3.5 to 4.5 milligrams of Primo every other day. Any more than that and it nuked his libido. These things are fucking strong. They can be strong for inhibiting aromatase. Other people like Vigorous Steve, on the other hand, could run 100, 200, lots of Primo. Estrogen lands at 40, and for him, that's fine. That's good. And then you got people who run 4 milligrams of Primo, and it tanks their libido. It just can do that. It's in my view, somebody sensitive to the inhibition of aromatase, and that process, blocking those enzymes, is just not working out well. Body's not dealing with it in an optimal way. So you could try that. Frankly, if I were you to not waste time, I'd keep the HCG, I'd keep the 10 milligrams of prop. I would remove the Masteron. Yeah, you're blocking estrogen receptors there too. You're competing with them with Masteron. Masteron was ultimately built for fucking breast cancer. Yeah, it was built to be an estrogen receptor modulator, blocker. Think about that. Rarely can you block estrogen receptors and have libido. This is why the people on Clomid have no sex drive. Yeah, that's a terrible drug to take for sex drive. It's not TRT either. Oh, it's stupid. It's a PCT drug. So that, I do that, see where the total test goes at 10 milligrams a day and see where the estradiol goes. See where it goes at peak. If you inject in the morning, just run labs at 6, 7 p.m. if you can. If Quest and all that closes prior to that, run it at 5 so you get an idea of generally where it goes at the peak. And then do it at the trough too before you inject. Then you have a lot of data points to see exactly what the fuck's happening here. You should be running it on this if libido and erections are not good too, so that you can see where it is. Get it between 25, 35 on the E2. Run your DHT, see where DHT is. You want it at least mid-level of the range, if you can, and then go from there. But maybe increasing the test to 15 will do it because it's giving you more aromatizable androgen, and if the Masteron is blocking that, then it might balance out. But nobody knows because you've got to experiment. Zachary, what are your thoughts on mixing low-dose test with low-dose DECA for daily injection protocol? Regarding what? What's the purpose of it? What are my thoughts regarding what? Sexual function? Because DECA can cause sexual dysfunction. It just that's just clear. Anyone who says that that's not possible is lying to you. It can cause it. It's been known in the bodybuilding community for fucking decades that DECA is real. And it could be any number of mechanisms. Increase in prolactin gene expression, which will give you a totally dead dick. Displacement of dihydrotestosterone at the receptor by a metabolite of DECA called dihydronandrolone. So I think for sexual function, you never want to touch anything that has the ability and has caused in a great degree of people sexual dysfunction. So the things on that list would be 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, nandrolone, curcumin. I had a guy literally, hire me for PFS, and dude only took curcumin, and he had all the symptoms. Thoughts on using Pregnenolone? I wouldn't call it useless, but if there was a level just below useless is what I would say. Yeah, don't need it. Take too much of it, it's going to convert to too much progesterone, and you are going to block DHT. I don't have it in my protocol. None of my clients have it in their protocols. And, the ones where we're at the point where we're dialed in and sexual function's good, they're good. They're good. They're good. No Pregnenolone in those cases. I think it's overrated. I think I've fucking never seen it to be some savior of anything. I've seen it cause sexual dysfunction, though. And that's my thoughts. How long could I run 10 milligrams of Anavar till shutdown? Till natty shutdown? Probably a month, a little less. What's up, brother? And clomiphene strong enough for suppression? It's not that it wouldn't matter because you're blocking estrogen receptors and you won't be suppressed. Dream big. Added 25 milligrams daily Proviron. Yeah. How's that feeling, brother? to HRT and 10 milligrams Pregnenolone. I feel like I'm fixing my post-finasteride ongoing insomnia. Does that sound right? It's unclear which could be doing that. Now, Pregnenolone can have an anti-anxiety effect, but I mean, you want to be so careful not to do anything that blocks 5-AR. And Pregnenolone at 10 milligrams, it's probably safer. Generally, though, going to convert to progesterone. If it's too much, it'll block 5-AR, and you're going to get worse, or or not get better. Even if you have Proviron in the mix. So just be careful. You do not need the Pregnenolone. You don't. It's entirely, people have all manner of shit like anxiety. People have anxiety problem. Like it's this full-on disorder where they're prescribed benzos and they're apprehensive to take it. Then they get on test and it goes away. So might be the Proviron, dude. That's helping you here. Sustanch might be useful for a natty. Yep. For increasing testosterone total tests. 30% in some of the rat studies. I don't think it's obviously not going to work for everybody. If you have limiting factors that are preventing you from making tests, it might not help. It works at the Leydig cell level. So if you got an upstream problem, meaning pituitary level problem, it won't help. What's the typical experience recovering from someone with PFS? Well, when we get the first and primary objective completed, which is to get estradiol, to get a hormone protocol where estradiol falls in range naturally, then the next thing is to ensure DHT is where it needs to be, and we'll play around with certain things to do that, whether it's derivatives of DHT or DHT itself or cream. And then once we get like those core effective requirements in order, then it's about the short strokes of dialing everything in, particularly SHBG. They need that because they've been starved of follicle stimulating hormone. It's usually low in PFS people, so they need functional testicles. But past a certain threshold in HCG, the estrogen goes too high. Those folks are among only a few groups of people that cannot hang with high estrogen. They can't. So it's a dance at that point. But I mean, I've done this with PFS specifically. It's hard to say at this point. I have 2,800 people over the years that I've worked with, whether it's an email consult, a one-off consult, a coaching package. I mean, it's been 7 years, a lot of people, and I'm getting hit up every day. I have been for years. Of those people, that's generally how it works when you're doing the right things. But PFS people sometimes can be difficult because they have all these ideas about, stuff they learned from the forums. It's strictly dopamine. They think oxytocin. No, that's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's a fucking endocrine problem. Hector, recent blood showed DHT 51. Is that good? That's fine. I mean, that's fine. Whenever taking yeah. So if you take DHT derivative, it doesn't mean that, and your junk goes numb, it doesn't mean that you already have too much DHT. It's because it's blocking estrogen and the dose might be too high. Yeah. I don't think you overconvert. If you think that, though, run labs. If it's 51, that's not overconverting. It's not. I mean, I don't know what dose you're on, but that's not overconverting. It just isn't. Plenty of people take DHT derivatives and their junk goes numb because they block estrogen. And that you think that's good if you need estrogen lower to have sexual function, but again, blocking the enzymes is different than estrogen going down in range naturally regarding the tissue level and what happens there with estrogen. With AIs and shit like that, sometimes for some people, they just don't distribute it. They get starvation of estradiol tissues for some degree of time, and then it kind of lets up. And all that does is throw you for a fucking loop and cause imbalances. My thoughts on DHT gel, it's supposed to be 50%. Is that doable? I have not seen 50% anywhere. I imagine it might exist. I think it's overkill. The 20% stuff, I don't want to call it overkill, but you don't need a lot of it. Andractum is a little too low concentration, in my opinion. I shouldn't say that. There are some people that can just take a very little bit of Andractum and it balances out the sexual system because it's enough DHT. It's countering estradiol at the tissue level, and then they have erections and libido. But somewhere in between is usually good, and 20% is a good one. Because first of all, if you need the extra DHT, like if you're on higher doses, man, I've been on 150, 170, 180, and used the DHT gel, somewhat of a high dose of DHT gel, and I had rock hard erections. And the serum on estrogen was over my range, but it was just blocking it at the tissue level and at the, like a degree of the aromatase gene expression was being blocked. So, gene expression for estrogens gets blocked with enough DHT. So that's why it's useful. I'd say go with 20%, 50% overkill. You don't need that much. Alan Jules, I don't think we've seen you here, bro. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the info. For someone not on TRT, should we call it just DHT lowering test too much? Yeah, it's going to shut you down. It's going to shut the testicles down eventually. Within the first month, that's going to start happening. I would not do this. I haven't had a whole lot of success. I've had early success that looks great and promising, but when E2 gets too low and the shutdown's too significant, with people with just like strictly a DHT protocol and the sexual dysfunction ensues. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that, I mean, if you want to try it, do a low dose and monitor your bloods the whole time. What causes more problems, finasteride or Accutane? Good question. I mean, I think they're both pretty goddamn atrocious. I have more coaching clients that are, have sexual dysfunction from finasteride than Accutane. But I also think that's the reason why that is because finasteride is more heavily promoted. And it's something that's so near and dear to men, like we want our hair, that more men have used finasteride, than have used Accutane. Derek, don't ask about sources here. I've been over this. livecortex.com source list. Dream big. Is the Proviron fixing my DHT receptors? Finasteride might have damage. No. DHT receptors are androgen receptors. They're the same ones testosterone binds to in the skeletal tissue and the muscle tissue, but in different locations, DHT has a more a tissue specific effect, meaning it's more androgenic and more geared toward maintaining erectile quality, as an example in penile tissue. And DHT does not act like testosterone at the receptor. Same receptors. DHT acts like a a quintuple X more powerful, longer lasting version of testosterone, which clears the system faster, but works at the endothelial level, among other things, to optimize blood flow when we're talking about erections. So no, you're not fixing DHT receptors. Those are androgen receptors, and rarely are androgen receptors a problem. You'd have to superficially manufacture a state in which androgen receptors are mutated. You could do that in a lab with rats. I don't think you could actually achieve that with humans unless you had been taking some, if you were doing androgen deprivation for a long, long time. I mean, that's like prostate cancer treatment. There are some drugs that probably could fuck with androgen receptors, but I don't believe finasteride does that. Androgen receptors might downregulate to some extent or be less potent in their gene expression facilitation due to a lack of test. When you're suppressing the pituitary, people with finasteride via their low FSH, that's hypopituitarism. So as a result, you're probably going to dysregulate AR function just because you don't have a lot of tests to be binding. They need to be healthy with androgen receptors, constantly recycled, broken down, cleared away, rebuilt. It's not just you have static androgen receptors. They're fluxing a lot. But Proviron, I think that, as I said, it's androgen sometimes can fix problems, and I the degree to which finasteride might have fucked with GABA is via blocking 5-alpha reductase in the brain. Chris Kuzmin, can using too much Proviron and Anavar cause DHT dominance problems? Feeling low E2? So absolutely. Anavar to a lesser extent. I mean, I don't. It's pretty rare that Anavar causes dick problems. If you're loading it up, maybe lower dose, it should not. Too much Proviron can, though, too, especially if you're at the lower doses of test. You don't have a lot of aromatizable substance there, like just super low E2 or close to low E2, and then you run 50 to 75 of Proviron, it's probably going to be acting a little bit more like an AI at those higher doses, and whereas it doesn't really at 25 milligrams a day, a little bit. So that's entirely possible. The oily skin, almost definitely, that's just from Proviron and that DHT like androgen receptor activity. Yeah. That's just what happens. That's just what can happen if you're not balancing that out. Yeah, you got to just manipulate the test dose. Maybe you need a little more estrogen. Maybe lower the dose of Proviron. There is a way to do that, but yes, that can happen if the protocol's not right, which is an indication the protocol's not right. Daniel, is Trenbolone and Masteron good combo for libido? Can't comment on that. Masteron's usually not great for libido unless you're one of those select few people who can tolerate inhibition of aromatase and blocking of estrogen receptors, competition for the estrogen receptors. So, I mean, this is way too general of a question that you're asking me, which means you're asking yourself way too general of a question. I mean, is Trenbolone and Masteron a good combo for libido? At what doses? Do you have a test base? Dude, you really need to start thinking, man. Nemo, do you think HCG is better than nothing for fertility in helping sperm mature? Yes. Yes. It is better than nothing. I mean, you can give it a shot and see, you might have to be dosing clinical doses of that shit, like 5,000 IU twice a week or something in order to do that. If you don't have E2 sensitive tests, what can be done to pinpoint exact E2 levels? Nothing. That's the problem with that. I mean, if you can try to find one on the web, you might have to pay money for it. But if you can try to find some sort of shippable E2 sensitive test that you can take, I don't know if that's possible. It's a shame because that's such a critical number to know, like the accurate version of serum estradiol, a really critical number to know. And all it is where countries don't have that is they're under-evolved. You need to know that number. And I'm sorry that you can't. Zachary got with Michael with Defy. That's the guy that I use, when re-upping on shit or getting cream. He's a great guy. He uses low-dose test mixed with low-dose DECA, so his E2 is in range, but also gets muscle-building joint pain reduction benefits. Yeah, DECA can do that. You just got to be careful because it can cause sexual dysfunction. Michael seems to be okay. Plenty of people take DECA and don't have dick problems, but plenty of people do. You want to play Russian roulette with your sexual function? I know enough after coaching people for years that have had their lives ruined with 5-alpha-reductase inhibitors and shit that blocks DHT that you don't want to even take that chance. MJ, I inject Test C 175 milligrams every 5th day. Got it. Best time to take a hormone test. Add a DHEA. Libido's better. Awesome. That's great. You want to know where it's at the peak and trough. So, right before you inject on the 5th day, run total test estradiol. At day 2.5, 3, between 2.5 and 3, run total test estradiol. That's where you're peaking. After which you start going back down. OB on test sip 200 milligrams a week, twice per week. Cool. So 100 milligrams every Monday and Thursday or whatever, every 3.5. E2 is 50. That sounds about right. You think switching to 3 times a week? So here's a good question. This guy's asking, I'm on a protocol where estrogen's too high, if in fact you're having sexual dysfunction, which is likely. Does pinning more frequently lower that? Likely not. Likely not. This is a misconception. People go, I'll pin every day and lower it. Likely not. It will lower the total estrogen, but it won't do it enough to get down in your range. Likely. It's just unlikely to do that. It's unlikely to do that. Yeah, the only way pinning frequently makes sense, I mean, it makes sense in some other contexts, but one of the major contexts relative to this where it makes sense, the most sense, is when you're already at low doses. Then you capitalize on the fact that you have low doses regarding estradiol, and then you pin every day too on top of your 115 a week, and then the estrogen is going to even be lower, and it's going to end up in a good, reasonable place where maybe sexual function will be amazing, and if it isn't, just add some DHT, and it will be good. Long as the functional testicles exist. It's a stupid way to say it. Long as your testicles are functional. How to switch from cream to test E. This is a hard one because, you could do it. You just do it right away. If I were you, I would front load and not worry about dick function for about a month because you got to get the test to where it's going to ultimately be. I would front load like 250. I'd front load like 300 milligrams for 2 to 3 weeks a week. And I would split that up between like doing 150 every 3.5 days. Yeah. If you want to do it faster, just do 150 every other day for a week. Because then you're going to get it up to where a test up to ultimately where you want it to be. And you won't have to wait a month in order for that NF8 to slowly build up in your blood. Then you can start dialing in quicker because you're already close. Yeah, I've done that before, man. I've, switching to NFA from a fast ester front loaded. So I could just get up there to 1,000 and then dial in from there. I could get there in a week. You get there sooner than that if you dose a lot. Might be an experience though. If you're not used to dosing a lot, you just pinned 500 a test. You're not used to that. You're going to have a rough time probably. Yeah. I remember when I pinned 560, I didn't pin it at once. I was doing 150, 160 every other day on cycle last summer. And I got test flu. Dude. I was like shivering a little bit. I felt like my brain had, my head had flu-y symptoms. I felt tired as shit. Sucked. I had to go back down and switch to prop for about a week and a half at 420 a week. Then I went back up to that 560 minute thing, pinning every other day, 160. Was fine. How long does Proviron take to realize that feel? Does it creep up on you, say, over 2 weeks? The masculine confident thing that it provides, or sexual function enhancement? Yeah, I remember your other question to some extent, but you got to try to reframe it or give me the context to refresh my memory. Proviron should start working daily right away for some things, but over time for other things. Sexual function might take a little while. This depends on a lot of factors. Where is E2? It might never help for sexual function if E2 is too high. But usually makes you feel pretty masculine and pretty manly and pretty androgenic on like day 2. At 3-4 days, you start noticing some hair loss or some, at least like a little bit of shedding if you're susceptible to that. Most people are with Proviron. It's pretty quick, dude. It's not something that has like build up in your system for it to be effective. That's all just about reaching a certain dose threshold. You could just front load and reach the effects in 2 days. Yep. How consequential is single digit SHBG for TRT? Does it indicate a need for frequent shots? That's unproven. That is unproven, man. Frequent shots usually tend to lower SHBG for people. The whole idea, and I know where this comes from, and I think a lot of you guys know where this comes from, that frequent injections is a way to like a lower SHBG, or is what you do when you have low SHBG. It's not that consequential, man. It's not. You're looking at a marginal difference. Single digit SHBG theoretically isn't the best. You just want it to be in range. You just want it to be in range. You might have to go off a test for a while to get it in range if you have to, and just deal with the side effects. Maybe take some Anavar for anabolism and energy, and and some Proviron potentially. Actually, yeah, I wouldn't take Proviron. That would lower SHBG further. Anavar might too. You might just have to, not run tests for a while. But if libido and erections and shit are good, leave it alone. He says Endo doesn't believe SHBG is particularly important, says weekly shots are fine. Yeah, weekly shots are fine if you can dial them in. Not everyone can. SHBG is important to the extent that if it's super over range, it's probably going to be problematic via quantifiable blood markers like not enough free testosterone. I mean, that's pretty clear. People think that single digits is problematic. I've never seen it to be, although I've only had a few people at like 8. No, not a problem though. Not a problem at 8. I've never seen low SHBG cause a problem. I think when we're down there at those low levels, people might have those. Doing the same other shit that dials people in works. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I think that's just it. Boys, coaching still 50% off. This is saving you thousands upon thousands of dollars. I mean, look, for a lot of stuff, we need time. Those of you thinking of doing a month, we can do that, and we can start a protocol, and we can start going and get you geared toward the right direction. But sexual dysfunction specifically, whether it's just on TRT or from finasteride, I mean, this stuff takes time. But the good news is, with this discount, you save thousands of dollars. You save $2,500 on a 3-month program. You save $2,500. On 6 months, you save $4,000, $4,500. Anything you do coaching, one-on-one coaching wise, which is working directly with me, I'm in your corner. We'll dial your protocol in. We'll fix the libido and erections. It's 50% off. That is the biggest discount that I have ever run ever on coaching. Semen level on TRT is extremely low. Yep, use some HEG. Alan just bought the source list. It was very helpful. Step-by-step guide makes it dummy proof. Oh, great. That's great. I'm grateful for you as well, brother. Thank you for being here. Thanks for taking part in this. And that's fucking awesome, dude. That is fucking awesome, brother. What are you guys doing this weekend, man? Where are you? Like, I'm in the Northeast. I'm in Pittsburgh, and it's getting fall-y outside. Today's 70 and sunny, but it's just been a little chillier lately, and I'm not particularly looking forward to the winter, but I know it's coming, so why be a Scrooge about it? I'm just gonna suit up. I got a bunch of cold weather gear that's for cyclists to wear under my clothes, where when it's 0 degrees, which it tends to be at certain stretches of the winter here in Pittsburgh, 0, I'm not that cold. I'm pretty comfortable, but I got to wear those cyclist level cold weather pants and cold weather undershirts and, then layers of other shit on top of it. And I'm walking around downtown in the city here in Pittsburgh with all the buildings and shit. It gets even colder. So, I mean, if it's 10, 15 degrees, like that's a pretty cold day. Down there, it feels like below 5. It's bad, but have the gear to do it. And you can go out there. I was out there last year in the freezing cold weather, man, with all my cold weather gear, a face covering, a fleece face covering, fleece hat, 2 layers of gloves, but again, cold weather gloves, really good gloves, cold weather gear underneath. And I was walking around at 2:30 in the afternoon, having a beer at some of my favorite places, chatting with the bartenders, chatting with the people that are there, having a good time. Recovering banana. Do you think there's an E2 threshold or concentration where even high DHT after supplementation is not efficient to counteract the E2? Yes. Yeah, it's like 45, 50 usually. I mean, that's the range where 45, 50 is the range where you'd have to have a lot of DHT and it could counter it. Probably not consistently. You get to 80 plus, you can't. I mean, there's not enough DHT to deal with that. It's just estrogen's going to be inhibitory to erectile quality and libido at the neurological level and at the penile tissue level, when it's too high, no matter what, kind of DHT you got in the picture. I've just seen that to be true. It's better off for you to get closer to your range in estradiol, even if it's still over, and use less DHT to cause a balance, to trigger the right balance. It's better off you do that. It's better off that you do that. All right, boys, questions are getting scant. I'm going to jet. I hope you have a great day. I'm just going to, all I'm doing today is I'm going to finish this up. I'm going to go on a big, long walk. And it's pizza night for me and my girl, Jill. We're going to go and have pizza at Caliente. It's one of the country's highest rated pizza places. And it actually is very, very good pizza. We're going to have pizza. We're going to have a couple beers and have a good time. That's my day this week. Content all week, so look forward to that. Coaching all week for those of you that booked. Let's chat all week today. Those of you that are thinking of booking, let's get on the fact-finding call. And Geronimo, don't hesitate. Just book. I've got your back. If you want to bring me on board, I got your back. I take a lot of pride in getting results. We get results. I'm a serious motherfucker, and we get results. Book me live, cortex.com. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being here. Great questions. Talk to you this week. Talk to you tomorrow. Content tomorrow. See you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.